Good evening, my dear channel followers. English from A to Z with Mr. Aziz Zuhair. Today we are going to have a new lecture. This lecture is linked to types of clauses. So before I begin to discuss the notion of a clause, let me remind you of what is a phrase. I have said before that a phrase is a group of words where there is no subject and verb. That is, a phrase is subjectless and it is verbless. However, when we want to discuss what a clause is, we are going to say that it is a part of a sentence or a group of words. But what is the difference between the phrase and the clause? The phrase is subjectless and verbless, whereas the clause is or has subject and verb predicate. When I speak about predicate, it means the verb and what comes after the verb. So predicate is either the verb alone when there is nothing after it, or the verb and what comes after it. It depends on the sentence you are analyzing. Now let's speak about the subject of a clause. The subject of a clause may be explicit, it's clear, it is stated, or implicit, I mean it's hidden. Okay? But the verb must always be apparent, because we cannot discuss a clause and there is no verb in that clause. But the subject, maybe it is not apparent, but it's there, as the case of the imperative. In general, when we speak about clause, you need a subject and a verb. Okay, let's jump to some examples for illustration. The first sentence, the small child wants to be a pilot. So here we have the subject, which is the small child, and we have the predicate, which is wants to be a pilot. This is the predicate, okay? It is made up of what? The verb plus what comes after it. Anything that comes after it. The second sentence, the same. To be a regular reader, this is the subject in the form of an infinitive phrase. And the predicate is a student's duty. The verb is the verb to be and what comes after it. Number three, waiting for a lawyer in the office. This is all of it a subject. The verb is plus tiring as an adjective, subject complement. Therefore, this is the predicate, is tiring. Now, we move to number 4, but it's very easy. Just you are going to understand it without problems. Be careful. This is imperative. And automatically we understand that when we say be careful, we address a person. Okay? We are speaking to an addressee. That addressee, it's clear, it's understood. But we should not write it. We don't have you be careful. You be careful. We have be careful, and the subject is understood. It should be put here. Okay? And same for, so here we have to be and we have adjective, subject complement. Okay? But number 5, we have just the verb. Stop. So this is a sentence. We can call it a clause. And this clause is made up of what? Of an implicit subject, which is understood because this is the imperative, and we have just the verb. So can we call it a predicate? Yes, we can call it a predicate. Stop alone. Okay? Even if there is nothing after it. That's why I have said before, predicate is either the verb alone, when there is nothing that comes after it, or when there is something that comes after it. So these are 5 sentences related to the examples that we have just seen. Now, what about types of clauses? Here I would like to tell you that there are 2 types. The first one is called an independent clause. And when we speak about an independent clause, we mean that it is a clause that can stand alone. It does not need to be attached to another clause. So which means the meaning of that clause is complete. It doesn't need another clause in order that its meaning can be understood. But when we speak about a dependent clause, this one cannot stand alone. It must be attached to another clause. That clause can be independent. And both of them, the independent and the dependent, will give us a sentence. Okay? An example of dependent is a child to a parent. So, which means the child cannot be independent because he or she is small. But parent is independent. That's why the child always depends on his parent, whether as a mother or as a father. So dependent clause can take another name, which is subordinate clause. So when we say a dependent clause, we mean a subordinate clause. It's a question of name, no problem. But when we speak about an independent clause, we speak about the main clause that can stand alone. A subordinate clause is a dependent clause that begins with a subordinate conjunction. So here we are not going to work with the 3 other types of conjunctions, mean coordinating conjunction, correlative conjunction, and conjunctive adverb. We are going to work just with a subordinate conjunction here. Or a relative pronoun, especially when we speak about adjective clauses. Or a relative adverb, the same when we speak about adjective clauses or participial phrases. Okay, so these are the elements that we are going to see, and then we are going to divide the sentence into dependent and independent. Another thing to state is that dependent clause can function either as a noun clause, an adjective clause, adverbial clause, or participial in a sentence. So these are four elements related to what we call dependent clauses. Okay, now the examples. Let's see number one. Nurses who truly put themselves on the front line to care for people should be highly valued. So here we have an adjective clause till here. This is what we call an adjective clause. Why? Because it begins with a relative pronoun, which is who, and who refers to the antecedent, which is nurses, and from who till people, this is dependent clause because it begins with a relative pronoun. So dependent clause, subordinate clause. But if we take nurses and should be valued, this is independent. So this sentence as an adjective clause, what do we have? We have nurses should be highly valued. This is independent. And the meaning is complete. The thought is complete. Nurses should be highly valued. But when we speak about who truly put themselves on the front line to care for people, it is dependent. It is subordinate. So this is the first sentence related to the adjective clause. The second one, the lady our neighbors respect is a volunteer. So here our neighbors respect. This is what we call contact clause. Why do we call it contact clause? First of all, clause because it is made of the subject our neighbors and the verb respect. Why do we call it contact? Because here we have the omission of the relative pronoun, which is whom. The lady whom our neighbors respect is a volunteer, and therefore the lady is plus is a volunteer. This is what we call independent. Am I clear? So this is a contact clause and the relative pronoun is omitted here. And if you want to examine the clause our neighbors respect, yes, it's a clause, it is made of subject and verb, but it is headed by relative pronoun which is omitted. It is not there, but you can use it. The lady whom. Her children work very hard so that they will travel abroad. So this is related to what we call adverbial clause. So this one, this is the dependent. Here, what do we have? We have the subordinate conjunction so that. So when you put the subordinate conjunction and what comes after the subordinate conjunction, this is the subordinate clause. This is the dependent clause. But the first part, which is her children work very hard, this is independent. And the meaning and the thought is complete. Her children work very hard. It doesn't need to be attached to another clause. Its meaning is complete. Another adverbial clause, the subordinate conjunction is because he lives far. So this is what we call subordinate clause, dependent clause. But the teacher often comes to school late. This is independent. So concerning the relative pronoun, either you have a relative pronoun or you have a relative adverb, and pay attention most of the time concerning contact clauses, and this is a trick in grammar. Concerning the second one, related to adverbial clauses, you need subordinate conjunction like so that expresses here purpose, or because, a subordinate conjunction that expresses cause or reason. Number 5, Moroccans strongly believe that. So this that as a complementizer, but concerning grammar, concerning syntax, we call it complementizer, but concerning what do we say, grammar, it is called subordinate conjunction. So from that till the end, this is what we call dependent clause. But Moroccans strongly believe this is the independent. Maybe some of you are going to say, why is it independent? Because it is not complete. So concerning noun clause, even if it is not complete, we consider it as complete, because we can say Moroccans strongly believe this, and we put full stop. This, when we want to combine the two clauses, it is replaced, or that comes in its place. It replaces this. That's why Moroccans strongly believe this. So this, that comes in its place. My parents do not know. So from Y till the end, this is the dependent. But my parents do not know, it's the same, it is not complete, but we consider it as independent. This is just related to what we call the noun clauses. Noun clauses. The sentence appears to you that it is not complete, or the clause, but you can add this. My parents do not know this. This is to make it clear to you. The last one is related to participial phrase, not this one. What is it? Yes, participial. So, wearing a black jacket. So this is a participial phrase, and it is dependent. So the only phrase which is related to dependent clauses is the participial phrase. I am going to explain why. The man plus is a policeman. This is independent. The man is a policeman, complete. But wearing a black jacket is not complete. That's why it is dependent, it is subordinate. In this case, this participial phrase, it originates from an adjective clause. The source is the adjective clause. How? If I say the man who is wearing a black jacket is a policeman. You see, who is. So here, who is omitted. Therefore, what remains? Just the phrase. So, when we speak about participial phrases, all the time bear in mind that the origin is either an adjective clause or an adverbial clause. So this first one is related to an adjective clause, because we can say the man who is wearing a black jacket. So we omit the relative pronoun, and then it becomes wearing a black jacket. And it takes a medial possession. Pay attention. The last one, having finished her university studies, Amina got married. So having finished her university studies, this is what we call the dependent. The dependent. Amina got married. This is the independent. You see, this is the independent. And in this case, what do we have in this sentence? We have dependent, having finished her university studies, and the independent, Amina, got married. By the way, whenever you have a comma that is in the middle, after it we need the subject of the independent, and at the same time this subject should refer to the participial, so as not to have what we call in grammar dangling construction. Means that Amina as a subject in the independent clause should refer to the participial phrase, so as not to have this concept which is dangling construction. How shall I know this participial? What is the origin of this participial? It's very easy. Either you say because Amina had finished her university studies, she got married. Or if you don't like to express cause, you can say after Amina had finished her university studies, she got married. And adverbial here, this participial phrase with an adverbial function, it is initial. It is initial at the beginning. When it expresses cause or time related to adverbial clauses, it can be, or it must be, at the beginning of the sentence. Okay, so this video related to types of clauses is now over. See you in another video, and thanks for watching.